Hey cousins, I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not, and this is Plot Twist Please, a place where I like to use pop culture in order to help make our brains a little cozier. Let's get into it. Okay, 2 stories today. Not me holding up the number 1 and saying 2. First story, the other day I was like, I don't know what I was doing. It was probably a rehearsal or something, and someone asks me, like they're talking about alcohol, and then at one point somebody asks me, wait, are you 21? Let me tell you, the ego in that moment, that felt really good. I'm not gonna lie, I've been working really hard on my skincare lately, y'all. Second story, more relevant, I promise. Teleprompter time. I have an extremely vivid memory, sensory memory. You feel? And so I have this memory of myself that I think is a widely accurate example of my true nature. I'm 6 years old. I'm on a cozy couch that I basically sink into because I'm so small, and I'm watching a movie. Can I tell you what the movie is? No, but I do remember one thing: crying. Is it a sad movie? I don't think so. Is it a scary movie? No. It's actually the opposite kind of movie, the kind that's like a touching family film with a beautiful score and a really heartfelt message. The only problem is that the score is so beautiful that I, not knowing the plot because I'm 6, start bawling. One of my adults asked me, Shemaya, why are you crying? What's going on? I respond verbatim, and I remember this exactly. I say, I just feel a lot of feelings. God, I was so dramatic. But I've introduced this very autistic coded story to you because we're going to talk about feelings. As a 20-something woman who's experienced, the adolescent era of, if you want to be powerful, have a heart made of steel, and the color pink will diminish you as a woman, I've had a lot of time to reflect on what to me equates to strength and what I consider to be weakness. As I embarked on this journey, I realized a few things. 1, some of us have a history of shaming ourselves for our emotions. 2, some of us don't have an outlet for feeling our emotions. And 3, some of us don't know the difference between empathy and lack of boundaries. So let's begin with chapter 1. Yes, we have an outline. Emotions and shame. I think it's safe to say that I'm a big feeler. I feel big things all of the time. If a baby cries in Antarctica, I cry. If a volcano erupts in the Amazon, I feel hot. Now, don't get it twisted, because I know how you girls like to tussle. But before you take out your boxing gloves, let me just make a few things clear, all right? Let me clarify. I'll tell you what this podcast is not. It's not a place where your ability to, quote, feel what someone else is feeling is linked to a value system. Now, let me break it down. Sorry if that hurt your ears. Let me break it down for you. In society, right, we associate being empathetic with being a, quote, good person. The more empathetic someone is, the more they're deemed a good person. If I were to tell you, for example, my friend Brittany is a really good person, and you ask me, why do you think Brittany is a really good question? I would probably respond with, because she has an enormous amount of empathy, or because she's really empathetic. And frankly, most people would respond that way. Now, furthermore, as an observant autistic, yes, I am an observant autistic, I've learned that the more empathy you appear to have, the better of a person you are perceived to be. Now, note that I said appear to have, perception. So how do we go from the notion of empathetic people being good people to emotions are bad? They seem like conflicting ideologies, right? Why can't we make up our minds about how we feel about feelings? To offer an answer, let me read you something from Psychology Today that snatched my wig right off my scalp. Quote, emotions are a cultural phenomena because we learn to have them in a cultural way. We don't really know discrete emotions when we are born. We only distinguish between pleasant and unpleasant. In interacting with others, we learn to categorize and experience emotions in certain ways. People in different cultures acquire different emotions. Psychology Today, what are you saying? My interpretation of this, personally, is that the relationship a person has with emotions largely depends on the culture they grow up in. Yes, girl. That means how they define anger as anger, as well as how they define anger as a bad emotion rather than a good emotion, is based on the culture they're used to. For example, in Western society, there is one word for love, and that's love. Sure, there are qualifiers like romantic love and platonic love, but love as a function serves one purpose in English, in the English language. In other languages like French, Spanish, Greek, there are several words that are direct translations of the word love. I mean, listen, that seems more efficient to me. But who am I? But merely a civilian. Whether we think an emotion is good or bad also depends on the culture that we grow up in. I know a lot of Black adults who were never really allowed to show anger in front of their parents because it was considered disrespect. Yeah, those Disney tantrums, the like, I hate you, Dad, or you're the worst person ever. Those outbursts, the slamming the door, that was a white phenomenon because a lot of Black families, it's like, fix your face and move on. Or you better close that door more lightly, like you got some sense. And as a Black neurodivergent adult who feels deeply, I now ascribe to the belief that emotions are neutral. But it's not easy to get there when every time you show an emotion besides joy, you're reprimanded. Even in white dominant spaces, a lot of Black women can't show distaste or emotions that are culturally perceived as negative because we'll seem difficult or like a angry Black woman. Ultimately, I do find it very interesting that Western culture finds the presence of empathy to be morally superior rather than actual genuine emotion. Genuine emotion is viewed as morally corrupt or impolite. You feel me? Like, asking how are you today is expected and celebrated, but actually responding to that question honestly in a way that is, quote, negative is frowned upon. Like, we have all these mechanisms in holistic culture, non-autistic culture, if you're clued in, to feign that we have empathy as a means of seeming agreeable in social situations. But the moment you show how you're actually feeling, you've broken the rules. I feel like specifically for autistic people of color, this makes us relate showing no emotion or only showing happiness and displaying calmness and contentment with, quote, good behavior. And when we display good behavior, we get rewarded. We get promoted at work. People seem to want to spend time around us. We stay out of trouble. We get access to certain communities. But the question is, at what cost? Listen, I worked in childcare for a long time. And one thing I appreciate, among many things, is that I take from that experience is the fact that emotions are going to make themselves known, whether you want them to or not. And if you don't put them somewhere, child, listen, and I mean somewhere they can move around, they will find somewhere to go. If you don't swallow your mouthful of water, it's going to come out your nose. You hear me, little Benny? It's going to come out your nose, and all your friends are going to laugh at you because you look silly. That brings me to my second observation. Chapter 2, Emotional Outlets. I've realized that if you're someone who doesn't feel your emotions fully, you're doomed to, wait for it, intellectualize them. Yeah. Thinking is not feeling. Let me tell ya, if my brain knows what it is to intellect, wow, what did I just say? All right, here we go. If any brain knows how to intellectualize emotions, it's this busy brain right here. Yeah, because the autistic brain likes to do this thing, right, where it wants to organize everything. It's the good old tried and true misconception that maybe if we understand pain, we can beat it, right? It's the need to put everything in life into a little box that we can organize. So even messy emotions, like emotions in general, it kind of feels like trying to take a ball of Play-Doh that has a bunch of Play-Doh colors that got mixed together in storage, and now you're trying to separate the Play-Doh by color, and now it's like under your fingernails, and how are you going to get it out? How are you going to get it out, huh? Side note, what a sensory nightmare. I'm so sorry for making you visualize that. It's all fun and games until you get it under your fingernails, for real. But here's how I've figuratively separated the Play-Doh in my brain and not completely lost it while doing it. 1, treating anger like a signal and not like a moral failing. As I said earlier, feeling anger doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean you're bad. It means that you're human, and maybe you're a human who needs to communicate a need or cross boundary. Or maybe you need to scream into the void. Scream into the void, anyone? Trust me, it'll clear your skin right up. The second thing I practice is telling myself that sadness is temporary. What comes down must go up. It's like a springboard. if you can visualize that. And third, feeling joy fully. Sometimes, as someone who is of the autistic variety dipped in chocolate, I tend to feel that I need to plan every single second of my life. And rather than fighting against that instinct, I use it. Yes, I mean planning joy. Planning moments where I'm like, Shemaya, you are going to have fun today. Your only job is to enjoy today. That's your only job. You're not going to figure anything out in your busy brain. It is happy brain time. And the thing about being someone who has experienced a lot of sad, is that sometimes when you feel happy, you start to think, this is going to end soon. I know it. Just waiting for the downfall now. But I urge you to fight against that. Honestly, art has been a huge outlet for me in terms of providing a safe space to fully feel my feelings. And, when I think back at my life, I realized that even before acting, that has been the case. When I was a wee little tot and I was still afraid to speak to people, late diagnosed autistics and anxiety adjacent folks can understand. I made a comic book series. I wrote a young adult detective series. I wrote a plethora of short stories about regular people having regular relationships with other regular people. And in hindsight, I was dealing with not being able to conform to holistic culture as much as I'd like. But these, I realized, were amazing outlets. Now I'm a professional actor with some experience under my belt. And that realization, the realization that I do my best work when I'm allowing myself to deeply feel my emotions is so present in my life. And honestly, I think autism is a tool in that regard. It's not a superpower. It's not a superpower. I'm not Clark Kent. I still am very much disabled. But I think having that deep feeling, having the ability to connect to my emotions so deeply is an autistic trait that has served me well in my career. Of course, you got to use technique and be on your mark and get the right headshots and remember your lines and yada, 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 showbiz. But I truly believe that I wouldn't be as good of an actor if I wasn't on the spectrum. Is that weird to say? No, because, it doesn't help in some ways when it comes to my acting career, but when I'm on stage or behind a camera, frankly, I rely on the fact that I feel so deeply and am therefore able to empathize easily with the characters I play. Feeling empathy, feeling anger, sadness, whatever kind of emotion that is classified as quote impolite because it disrupts the social script that no one actually agreed on collectively, that nobody voted on. There is nothing wrong with feeling those feelings. Listen, I have never been a chill girl a day in my life. I have never seen myself as a chill girl. I'm about as chill as a live crab in a pot of boiling water. But I can tell you this. The moment I stopped feeling shame about how deeply I feel things was when I met other neurodivergent people. I have a close-knit friend group full of neurodivergent folks, me being the only autistic one to my understanding, but most of us being the kind of people who feel deeply and encourage one another to move with authenticity. It's the kind of thing that makes you go, wait, it's okay for me to cry about this? It's okay for me to cry? And also, it's okay for me to say when something makes me mad? So many rants I could have had. So many people I could have annihilated with a sentence. That's my toxic side speaking. Ignore her. So let's hear from my healed side again, right? Sorry, sometimes when I think about how much righteous anger I had growing up that I shoved down because I thought I was impolite to say, this makes me mad, or I don't like this, actually. It just makes me... Oh, I want to scream. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm glad that engaging with art has helped me process my anger. Let's move on. Now that we know it's okay to cry, because we didn't know it before, it's okay if you didn't know before, I think there's an important distinction to be made between feeling empathy, for other people and allowing yourself to be emotionally volatile to the point that it impacts your mental health. Which leads me to chapter 3, we love an outline, empathy versus boundaries. So, as someone who feels a lot, I've been toying with the question, and this is the question. What happens when empathy goes wrong? I know that I'm not the only person on the planet who has ever thought this question up, so here's more of me talking about it anyway. Because talking to you about things that you may or may not already know is my job. Okay, here we go. Feeling everything maybe means you have an enormous amount of empathy naturally because of autism or some other neurodivergence, but sometimes, and don't stuff me in a locker, sometimes it's a sign that you lack boundaries. I'm sorry. Cause my cuddly emo little ponies, the thing I just spent half an hour glorifying can still be the thing that destroys you. Well, that's dramatic, literally the drama of it all, but it can severely impact your life in a negative way. Here's a quick and dirty tangible guide as to how to maintain your emotional boundaries as an extremely empathetic autistic. Firstly, decide who deserves your emotional energy. And secondly, set a timer for processing emotions so that it doesn't take over your life, so that it doesn't destroy your day. Because you deserve to have a good day today. You deserve to have a good day. You deserve to process things in your own time and feel deeply about the things that impact you with boundaries that still keep you emotionally safe and allow you to live your best life. Live your best life, girly pop. You deserve that. Well, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to tune in next week. We're doing a weekly podcast now because it's better for me to just have things that are consistent. I'm more consistent when the schedule's more consistent, and bi-weekly just isn't consistent enough for me. So in order to make the best possible content for you, it's weekly. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, be blessed, stay weird.